Welcome to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast sharing the challenges and stories of fellow business owners.
Hello, I'm Debra Levitt, your host. This week, I'm in conversation with Elroy Spoonface Powell. Spoon talks to me about how it felt to go from the giddy heights of a chart-topping single to stepping away to follow what he felt was his destiny rather than going in the direction that others were driving him. He talks about the journey, the ups and downs, how he looks after his own well-being, and the importance of knowing where you're going and making time for yourself. At the end of the conversation, I have another little snippet of what others find challenging in business. This time it's from Mandy Dineley. I thought Mandy was an appropriate one to put at the end, as Mandy is a singer-songwriter and her new business is My Beautiful Pen. So please make sure that you stay on to listen to hear about Mandy and her experiences and advice around starting a business. Please join me now in welcoming Spoon. Hello and welcome, Spoon. How are you this morning?
I'm amazing, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
You are very welcome. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you. It seems like you've got a very interesting journey that you've been on so far and are continuing to go on.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just doing what feels right for me and cracking on with it.
Which is absolutely fantastic. So you're from Diverse Music Solutions, and I noticed that it's a CIC, which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's not for charity. I'm going to let you tell me what CIC is.
Yeah, we're a community interest company, so effectively we can make money commercially as long as we're putting it towards our ethos and making it work for the community in simple terms. And it's not as rigid as when you set up a charity and you need a board of trustees and all this kind of stuff. So it's very different, which is great. It gives us the flexibility to figure out interesting new ways to generate revenue. But at the same time, we have that very community. We have a strong community focus.
So do you want to just tell me a little bit about what Diverse Music Solutions is?
Yeah, well, it all started out of my experiences in the music industry, because the first song I ever released went to #1 in the UK charts, and I went on a roller coaster of a ride in the industry, as I'm sure we'll get into a bit later. But dealing with the ups and downs, figuring out what I had to do to help myself survive and create sustainability led me to realize we can use music in a way that can assist others to do the same. Sustainability has become such a real focus for me, and not only sustainability, but with a leaning towards wellness and balance. And that's very much what the ethos of Diverse Music Solutions really is all about, So yeah, that's how it emerged. I went and did, I was helping a friend of mine, a dear friend called Darren Mead, who's a partially sighted martial arts instructor, and he wanted some ideas on how to develop his business. And so I helped him set up something called Me TKD, and we went and saw some people at an organization called the Beyond Business Program. And they helped us with planning and figuring out the legal structure and all this kind of stuff. And then they said, well, why don't you do something similar for your music stuff and see what happens? And I was blown away, really, and I thought it's going to be quite a bit of work, but I'm going to crack on and get it done. And then, we managed to raise 5 figures and got both companies up and running. And then, I've just been helping brands source music for their media campaigns and helping composers with music-related opportunities. And then we take profits to fund community activities. So we worked with Magic Breakfast, having had a sort of song land on a Mercedes commercial a few years ago. And so we was really into things like that on a project-by-project basis.
So exactly how are you how are you working with people? Is it that somebody would come along to you and say, hey, I'm about to do an ad and I need some music for it? Or, who comes to you for music and who do you work with in the company?
Yeah, there is that. People brands that need music for their commercials or in-house videos, corporate-wise, will come say, yeah, we need some music for a campaign. What do you have? Can you help us with a search, or do you have something in your catalog? We're set up as a library as well, so we have sub-publishers that have their own network of clients that send our music to, and then we sort of get revenue on the back end through the performing rights societies and so on. But yeah, on the flip side, with composers, they'll approach us and they'll maybe share what they can do and give us an example of the quality of their work and so on. And we'll offer advice. If it's something that we can't work with, we'll say, maybe try this and come back to us. Or at times very specific and say, we have a brief. This is what we're trying to do. This is the album we're trying to make. Do you have anything that can fit? And sort of go from there. And we're now being very focused about how we do that. When we first started, actually, we did a spoken word album. It was very different to where we are now. And we're also open to that we're flexible and open to that evolution.
So you're kind of working with people from, I guess, both sides. You're working with the musicians, the people who are creating the music, whether it already exists. You're working with helping people to find music that's out there that they want to use. But then you're also working with the people who are searching for music. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then when you're doing the community-based things, are you doing that? Is it around music as well? Or is the music side of the business is essentially what's making the money, and the community aspects are helping however the community needs assistance?
Absolutely. What you just said right there.
Well, let's go back to where you were. As you said, 20 years ago, you had a number one hit. And, maybe we can start there and just, how you got to, first of all, having that song out there, and how things move forward to that point, and then afterwards.
Yeah, I was in my late teens and studying and having a hard time. I was doing law, actually. I wanted to venture in that space. And a friend of mine, because I'd always done singing lessons at school, a friend of mine called Lisa Millett, she was signed to a label called Defected. She said, look, I've got some friends that need a vocal done. I think you should give it a go. So I was just happy to have the opportunity, jumped on a plane, went out there, did it, and came back, didn't think anything more. And it was a real tough session, because it was a Barry White cover. And I wasn't as big then as I am now. And Barry White, big guy, and his body he's a resonating chamber for the sound that he created vocally, but it was real tough. But I came back, didn't think much of it, and then they said, hey, this song's going to number one. We need you to do a hell lot of dates and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, let's do it. Threw myself right in. And that was my introduction to the recording industry, I didn't really get to absorb what happened to me until maybe 7 even to 10 years afterwards. And that might sound weird, but it was literally every day or every other day, some kind of promo, some kind of press, traveling somewhere. And it was tough, but so exciting. It then became challenging for me to do what I wanted to do, because everyone expected me to be Barry White. Everyone expected that follow-up to be in line with that. And I was young. I was only 21 at the time, just turned. So to get a major record label to listen to you and follow what you wanted to do was challenging. And I understand, especially now, how important really we have to respect the business side of it. And it is about making money and making sure it works. So they were very careful about that. But for me, I wanted to do other things. I grew up listening to reggae and drum and bass and garage and all this kind of stuff. And at the time, UK garage was doing well. People out of Middle Row and all this kind of stuff was blowing up. And I wanted to do some, and it wasn't happening because they wanted to do some other stuff. And they just wanted to do a single. I was like, no, we need to do an album. It needs to be a full project with a band. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly. And I couldn't get the support and the time to really absorb myself into developing it myself as well. There was just so much happening. So there was a massive decline, a massive kind of fallout. And I had to just stop my pursuit, thinking I had to reframe everything, stop thinking about getting in the charts and getting a top 5 or a number 1 position. What is it that makes me feel at peace? What is it I enjoy? Who are the artists I want to connect and collaborate with? And I just went out and found them. I went out and found people in drum and bass, labels that I liked, Hospital Records, Emotive, and people like Martin Love, who I've got so much time for, just through me collaborating with tons of people. Freak Nasty, we did a remix for Khalees on her Milkshake record at the time. And there's all these kind of things that I wouldn't have done if I had just focused on being Barry White for the rest of my life. I just didn't want to be that guy. So yeah, that mindset had always been with me, because growing up as a kid, I did a lot of martial arts. I did a lot of Taekwondo, and our instructors, especially Raphael Mead, would always say, go and try different things, throw yourself into, to keep learning, try, be evolve, be flexible. And that always stayed with me. I had this real childlike embracing of the world. And so, I did that, and my career started to change again. I got into acting, now voiceover artist, and running a publishing company and such through Diverse Music Solutions, and loving the journey. And that's why I wrote the book. I thought, let me share my experiences. Maybe it'd be useful to other creatives and people just in life generally who are going through a hard time, and maybe looking for some ideas when they're transitioning, or worried about taking that leap of faith into just doing what feels right for them and letting go of the pressures of everyone else's opinion.
Because how difficult was it to, you've got people who are wanting you to be Barry White. You're living that life, which is, suddenly sprung itself upon you. And as you say, you're all over the place doing promos and, doing really well. How hard was it to actually stand up and say, actually, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be Barry White for the rest of my career?
It's incredibly hard, because not only the pressures of everyone knowing what you look like, recognizing you everywhere you go, following your footsteps, and then you get those people that expect you to, they revel in your failure. They revel in the fact that, oh my gosh, your perceived failure, or where's the follow-up record, what are you doing next, and you got all of that, and you think to yourself, well, I'm not even bothered about you because you don't pay my bills and all that kind of stuff. But it was tough because financially it was an opportunity to make a living. And when you have family obligations, you have bills to pay and all that kind of stuff, you see it as an option, but within your soul, it's just not the right thing to do. So you try a bit, and then you feel this pain in your chest telling you, man, this isn't the right thing. What you're doing, go and do what feels right for you. And yeah, it's going to be tough for a while, but you can make it work. You've done this before. Like if you can go from being an unknown kid from North London to selling several million records and taking private jets, across Europe, you can do anything, So I just thought, okay, let me soak this up. Let me just crack on. And here we are now.
And did it, when you went through that journey, once you made the decision to step away, so you've said that some people were reveling in your failure. And as you say, there's always the people who have, for whatever reason, that makes them feel good. But did you feel yourself that you were a failure? Did you feel as things were maybe getting tougher that you were a failure and had to fight against that? Or did you have throughout a belief in that you were going in the right direction, even if it was tough?
It's a great question. We say now, the transition and off we go, but it took years to do that. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And whenever something didn't necessarily go my way, as humans, we generally, for some reason, allow every other situation in the past that didn't go your way to revisit you emotionally and so on. And it can, if we're not careful, bury us in a hole. And there were times where I felt very isolated. I felt alone, and I didn't know who I could talk to, and I struggled with it, especially with family obligations, paying bills and being there for people. It's tough, going from being this person everyone's looking at with admiration. But the other thing that really helped ground me, really, and helped me out of those situations were two things. One was knowing that from where I came from. I came from really humble beginnings. We come from a working class family. We didn't have much, so everything really was a bonus. All the opportunities I had to travel and meet people and do things, it's great. So I always just looked to the positive and reframed it. And then secondly, my martial arts background, just the role models I had around me, thankfully I could go to, I could train with, and just I had my outlet for the stress and my outlet for those hard times, and people I could bounce off to just recharge and get the energy I needed to get back in the saddle and keep it moving.
And did you find that you were, I'm just trying to think about how to phrase it. So as you say, you're getting back in the saddle, you're looking at how you can progress. Were you able to look back on that time and say, okay, I could go back to this, if I want to, I can go back and be Barry White, or actually no, that opportunity has now passed, and therefore I can take the good things out of it, but I need to focus on where I'm going now with me?
Yeah, that's another great question. I feel the thing is, we're all, depending on what you grow up listening to and what your experiences are, we take bits from everything we come in contact with anyway. And I listened to Barry White growing up, not massively because I had more of a reggae background, but he was there anyway. And so when I was doing the Barry White thing, I was performing sometimes 3-4 times a night, plus sort of rehearsing so that I could deliver. So I was immersing myself in his music for a while. And so, yeah, I did feel like if I wanted to, I could touch that, but I would do it in my own way and maybe take elements that were, I could use to influence my new stuff. But just slightly going back to what we were saying before, one of the great things about the experience of what people may see as perceived failure and so on, or when you get into a dark space, is you get an opportunity to see who's really there for you and who your friends are and so on. And it was a great filtering period. And so now, in a much better place, I know, I can benefit from hindsight and all that kind of stuff and say, okay, I know who I want around me and what my processes are for making sure I keep it that way. And so you start to learn there are no failures, but just opportunities for us really to learn and to grow. And it's a great thing. Musically now, I do a lot more voiceover wise. I love using my voice. And if I'm being 100% honest, I love doing voiceovers because you get paid. You get paid quicker.
You get paid to talk.
You get paid to talk, and I can talk all day if you want me to, especially if you pay me. When it comes to that kind of commercials and so on. But the thing with music is there was over the years a culture of people expecting you to do stuff for free. This whole, just do it on spec, and if it works out, we'll give you something. And I refuse to do that. And I encourage musicians to ensure that when they're working with people, you make it clear, look, this is how much I charge, and this is why, and this is the quality of my work and what I can deliver. And if they can't afford you and whatnot, say thank you, and you don't do it. It's okay to recognize your worth and keep it moving. But I love doing voiceovers for that, just like I love acting for that. Sometimes actors are struggling to find work, but when you find work, you're going to get paid. And getting paid is a massive issue for for a large number of people in the music industry, and a small number that are really creaming it in, which is great. But I really like to often talk about how we need to value music. It's so easy to get it for free, download it, stream it for peanuts, and it costs so much to empty our souls into this industry, and we just don't get it back. So I think once you normalize certain elements of it and then find other ways to generate revenue, it's not a big deal.
Well, and I think there's some, really valid points, not just for musicians, but generally for people in business, is putting that value on yourself. And, I know I've spoken to a lot of different business owners and, photographers, all sorts of people who are, well, let's, do this for free and I'll give you some exposure, or if anything comes out of it. And it is really important to be making sure that you are going, no, actually, this is something I'm good at, I'm skilled at, and you need to be paying me for this. And if you can't afford me, that's fine. But it's really hard when you're first starting out and when you're trying to establish yourself and get those opportunities. So I think seeing that in the music industry as well is, well, I guess enlightening, because I hadn't really thought about that, even though I do know a few other people who are doing, singing and various other bits. When people are taking that, when they're taking that step, I guess, where they're actually thinking, okay, I want to go out, I want to be, making money from my voice. How do they find those opportunities? How do you find the voiceover opportunities or, the acting opportunities? But how did it work for you to be moving through that process from being Barry White to now trying to do something else and getting to where you are now?
It's a lot easier now because we have access to our audience through social media at the click of a button, and that it's great. Just figure out a campaign, get yourself online, build your presence, and really think about how you're demonstrating value, how you're connecting with the people you want to attract, and what you're giving. I talk about emotional maturity and intelligence in my book, and how important it is when we're building our network. Sometimes, especially for creatives, we get into this mindset of, I have a great voice, the world needs to love me, but actually, no, they don't. You're not guaranteed anything or entitled to anything. What is it that you're giving into the situation that warrants the attention that you want? And so, yeah, we could do that, get social media working for you. I did a lot of just being everywhere. I didn't sleep. I still don't really sleep. I just get up and I just go and meet people and talk to everyone and just learn and keep learning and keep connecting and do what I can to give to keep the community, my community buoyant and working and growing.
And how do you, how do you build that community? So as you say, you can be out there speaking to people, and on social media, there's an element of, we think, well, I've put it out there, people should be looking at it, but they're not necessarily. There's so much noise out there. There's so much, so many people, so many companies, individuals who are putting information out there. How did you make yourself, I guess, stand out from it and attract a following and build up the following?
So yeah, I've been doing it now for over 20 years, so it's probably slightly different. When I first started out, it was just about trying to be as skilled as possible, doing the best I could with what I had, and then going out and meeting people. So music-wise, joining trade organizations, going to their social events, joining groups and networking, doing shows. If you're an artist, putting together an album a year with maybe a couple of videos and doing some tour support or regular live gigs, doing live stuff online, sharing videos on Instagram. There's so much we can do now to show people what we can do and how we can help them. Yes, I definitely advise to do that and just don't stop.
And how do you, presumably there are still the ups and downs, even if not as extreme as when that phase of being Barry White ended. How do you find that you cope with those? What are you doing to help you to, I guess, maintain your mental well-being?
That's a great question. One of the things that I recognized happened to me several times was I burned out. I would sometimes be turning up to meetings with flu and all kinds of stupidness, thinking, no, I can't miss out on this opportunity. This could be the thing that changes everything. And well, you can't enjoy it if you're dying or you're dead. So yeah, I have a regular, I do martial arts still. I work out. I like to take time out where I don't talk to anyone. I'm either meditating or I go on a spa weekend or go for a bike ride, sit in the park. I make sure I consciously put things into my day, into my week, into my month. I make sure I'm creating distance from my work, from my grind, and focusing on me. Especially when you have children or you have other commitments, it's so easy to get into this mindset of, I've got to give. I just got to give everything. But you can't just deplete yourself without putting stuff back in. It's dangerous. I also have people that I trust that I can go to and ask for advice. And share with. If I'm uncertain about something or something's troubling me, I can go for a meal or just hang out and say, look, and they know, they know, just like for them, I know, okay, yeah, there's something deeper. And a lot of the time you don't even need anyone to respond to you. You just need someone to listen. A lot of time we have the answers to whatever's, messing with us. We just need to vent, let it out, and then feel reassured that someone cares that we've been able to do that.
No, and that's very true. As you say, sometimes even as you're explaining or telling somebody what's going on, just by the act of doing that, you essentially answer it yourself. But it's having that person there who's listening and supporting you, which for some reason seems to open it up to you being able to hear yourself, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So you then went on and you've written the book, How to Think Beyond a Chart Position. Take me through that. What made you decide to write a book, and what was the process itself like? I think a lot of people wonder about writing books and how you actually go about it.
Well, for a long time, it was important for me to just keep growing and developing myself. And so I recognized I spent so much time being creative and immersed in that world. Let me start exploring some of the very straight up business processes that could help my career. So I managed to connect with Dent Global. A friend of mine I was speaking to said, look, check out this book. So I read Entrepreneur Revolution, and it really resonated with me. And I turned up at an event and I thought, because usually I'm really cynical about these things. You just feel like you're being drawn in to buy something. And I knew there would be something to buy at the end of it, but I kind of liked what it is I was buying into. It was very straight up, no nonsense. This is how you can really make it work for you. And so I did the course, a threshold course, and my mind was blown in terms of all that I saw I could do, but more importantly, the amount of value that I saw I was sitting on. Like we go through our days just thinking, we just are who we are, and you just don't recognize. We don't recognize often the power of our story, the power of the experiences we have, and what we can do in order to help others with our experiences and grow business-wise. So I thought, wow, this is cool. And they were talking about books because of the whole KPI thing, key person of influence, and how important it is to publish and so on. I thought, okay, I have to write a book. I don't know when or how, but I'm going to have to write a book. And it started as a blog. I just started blogging areas for me that I thought were important to share. And then I got to a point where I realized, oh my gosh, I could turn this into a book. Let me add a bit more to it and finish it. And then I got into a schedule of regularly waking up and doing about an hour or so of writing until it was done. So that's how the book came about. But I have to thank my friend Emily Abbey. If it wasn't for her, I don't know. I wouldn't have connected with Den and Andrew and Daniel Priestley are really cool. I went to Singapore and Daniel connected me with an artist out there who I'm still friends with, and I just love that the community within Den. There are so many really talented business people that you can connect with and like yourself and share, and everyone genuinely wants the best for you, which is nice. So that's how my book came about in that sense. In terms of, specifically the topics, obviously my experience with having had a #1 record and how we're told, we're conditioned to believe you have to be at the top of a chart to feel like your career, your efforts are significant. And having been there, having experienced it, I say yes, it can be very helpful to your career. There's so much that opportunities it opens up for us, but it doesn't mean you're crap. It doesn't mean that you can't make it work long term. And sustainability and wellness and balance are the most important things, because we're not just living to put music in charts. We're living to live. We're living life, and so we can't forget the bigger picture.
No, and that is so true. And one of the things I'm really keen on, and what I guess I'm hoping and trying to do with the podcast even, is to get people to whom success means different things. Because as you said, we're so conditioned these days to thinking that success is all about being at the top, whether it's the top of the music charts, whether it's winning awards, whatever it is, you've got to be up there and really visible. But the reality is that what success means to each of us is different. And knowing what success means to you and being confident in that success. So even when, as you've referenced, people are thinking that you failed or whatever, and going, no, actually, this is success to me, I think has a huge impact on your well-being just mentally, and your ability to tell people that no, actually, this is what I want. And this is, the fact that I'm out there and I'm doing voiceovers and I love using my voice and I get paid quickly, that to me is amazing.
Yeah, and we're hardwired. This whole success thing is hardwired into our DNA. We're sort of about survival as a species and all that kind of stuff, and it obviously crosses into other things. So I get that. Then you step back and go, you know what? What's really making me feel good right now? Why am I really doing this? And how can we keep it working?
And so in the book, do you share some of the emotions and how you felt and how you got past that rise and then that fall, and then getting back to a good place where you are now?
Yeah, I do. I'm very honest. I share it all. I share also where it came from in terms of my parents and my home life growing up, which at time was full of turmoil, lots of arguments and fights and weirdness with my parents and stuff. And I love now as an adult that I've been able to speak with my mum about it and share and all of that's in the book. And I think it's important for me to be honest about that side of things, because especially when you're an artist, you're always trying to give the best impression of yourself. When we're actors, we're in the front, we're in the forefront all the time. You don't want to talk about that day you didn't want to get out of bed, or how you felt scared about going on stage, or you got tired of your family members and maybe you shouldn't really be talking to that uncle or that grandmother anymore because of this or that. All those things I think it's been important for me to be honest about. They're just very human things that we'll go through, but for people that are actors and creatives and we're out there, sometimes we let it out through the music, but we're afraid to really share it in other ways. And this is what often leads to the anxiety that people experience, the depression, the isolation, the self-medication, and all these things people are doing. And in worst case scenarios, people are taking their lives because they're finding it so hard to deal with the realities of their situation. And we need to make people feel more comfortable about that.
We do. Do you find that, because you've done martial arts from the sounds of it from since you were quite young, do you find that has helped you throughout in terms of not just providing mentors, but also giving you the mental, well, I'm going to say capacity, it's not quite the right word, but the mental ability to deal with some things once you've recognized that they're being a challenge for you?
Absolutely. When I first started martial arts, it was because I wanted to be tough. You want to know that you can look after yourself and all this kind of stuff. And you watch the movies and you want to fly through the air and do all sorts of stuff. And and then you get into it. And if you're fortunate enough to have the right kind of mentors and instructors around you, you realize how it really can help you through life, dealing with conflict before it happens, not just in a physical sense, but within yourself. Having that outlet, having that opportunity to recognize the signs before they happen and take a step back, and also recognize when it's time to seek help. Because the other thing that I've learned from martial arts is how we're not immortal and how, it doesn't matter how many years you've been doing whatever, anyone can get hurt. And once you start to realize that, you start to respect life a lot more, and you respect yourself a lot more. And so it's been important for me to do it for that reason. And I'm so glad that I've had it in my situation. Now, I used to do a lot more Taekwondo, and then I did Kung Fu for a while. And then now I do a lot more Brazilian or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And so sometimes you're on the mat with a 6 foot something, 20 stone guy on top of you, and you're wondering, how on earth did I get here? And I need to get out of here as soon as possible. But it's the most amazing thing when you actually do get out, or you survive. And it's the same with life. Things will be happening that are beyond our control, but if we can just keep breathing, be patient, and survive, eventually we can get through it.
Oh, that's really great, because I don't know a huge amount about martial arts, but I've heard various things around it's not just the physical, but the mental aspects as well. And it's really lovely to hear that analogy of getting out of situations that it's helping to teach you and others how to do. So, Spoon, if we can go on to just a little bit, you've talked about the fact that you've been, voiceovers, acting, and that sort of thing. And it'd just be good to know a little bit more about how you ended up getting into the acting side. Because I can understand, for me, it's very logical. You were doing music, you were singing, and I can see that very clearly leading into voiceovers. And obviously with the big, deep voice as well, can see that, being a big plus. But how did the acting come about?
So when I was a teen, actually, I was doing lots of bits and pieces, so not supporting artist stuff, and then the music opportunity came up, and I followed through with that. But when I really got into it, I'd say about 7 years ago, I got back into it, and I started doing screen combat courses and with the British Action Academy and other acting things, and then I got asked to be a market trader on EastEnders, and I was there for a couple of years, and that really opened my mind. I learned so much about the craft just being on set. We're there 12 hours a day, several times a week, and you just learn so much that sometimes you don't even need to go to drama school or anything to pick up on. It's just been great. But I did a few of those other sessions outside of that to really tighten my craft. But the people I met there taught me so much as well. Just listening to the stories people have to tell, people that have been there for over 25, 30 years. And that was all useful. And then I got an acting agent, and it just moved on. I've always been the type of guy that, I like to keep things moving. I like to keep things growing at my own pace. I don't compare myself or compete with anyone else but myself. And so I was like, okay, I've done this now. What's next? Okay, let me get an agent. What do I need to do to get an agent? Okay, I need to get on Spotlight. I need to do this, and I need to sign up with Equity. What's going on? So I did all of these things, and then last year I did a film with Stephen Merchant, which will be coming out at some point. And so, yeah, I've just been doing the best I can to keep moving.
It sounds to me, well, first of all, that's really amazing about the film with Stephen Merchant. So it'd be good to hear when that comes out. And to see you, not just hear about it. But it sounds like you've got a real, the term I'm coming across a lot now is portfolio career, where you're doing lots of different things that all, for you, are actually delivering things that make you happy ultimately. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of my experience with the music project, I recognize that between now and the rest of my life, there's going to be a period of time where I won't be able to to move in the way that I want to move, and so on. So during the prime part of my life, what is it that I want to spend my time doing? And so I just made a list of all the things I want to do, and I'm just going for it,
So what else is still on the list?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they will become apparent to you at some point. And I'll be happy to share. But I like to I'll wait, and I'll
So we'll have to have a follow-on conversation later as they're becoming clearer. In terms of where you're going next, and with the acting, with the voiceovers, with diverse music solutions, where do you see taking those to? What is your, I guess, aim or goal to get to with them?
Well, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me in Hollywood and so on, and just doing more projects on the voice front. I kind of feel like I need to, for me, do another album that sort of captures my feeling now and where I am now. So yeah, probably some music and some live performances at some point, but also doing a lot more to help, a lot more to give community-wise workshops and projects, sustainable projects that can help others on their way towards their own personal goals.
And do you find that you are, when you're helping with the community projects, that you're wanting to work with people who are from that music or performing background, or do you find that the experiences that you've had will help anybody irrespective of the background or what they're trying to achieve?
I'd just like to know that whatever I'm giving is useful, because time is so precious. We can't get it back. And I just want to know that people are, whatever they do, they can take it and run with it and do something useful. Like, you know, some people you can't help, and some people you don't know you're helping. So I just go with what feels right and just do it, get it done, and keep it moving. Just move on.
Just keep it flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just try not to get too caught up in also being too hard in terms of how I measure it. I mean, when you're running a social enterprise or a charity and so on, if you have sponsors and all that kind of malarkey funders, you have to show that you're meeting targets and all that. But for me, I just like to recognize that what I am doing is making some kind of tangible difference. And as long as I can see that for myself, then it doesn't matter to me. Some people want to see that you're turning over millions or you've got all these hundreds of people through this and that. I'm like, well, if only one person leaves and feels inspired to make a change, it will ripple out in some way anyway. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, just seeing it or knowing that you've helped, as you say, even that one person can have a huge impact. And you also don't necessarily know the ripple effect of that one person that it's resonated with and how that then goes out beyond to other people. So as you say, measuring against what feels good to you is a great way to do it rather than looking for that external validation, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
So it sounds like there's lots of exciting things coming up and lots of things that we're going to be hearing more about as they take place. How are you continuing to maintain that wellness that we talked about before? So we talked about it a little bit in terms of, seeing your friends around the martial arts, but as life gets busier and you're maybe putting yourself out there more visibly, how are you making sure or planning on making sure that you stay well in yourself?
The last 5 or so years, I've really sat down and thought about what I'm doing nutrition-wise. And I didn't want to get into this whole thing of every new year going, I'm on a diet and I'm going to lose 100 pounds and all this kind of stuff. So for what little thing can I do that I can honestly maintain for a long period of time and just do it? And when I feel that I'm comfortable in that space, find something else to add to it. So, for example, I stopped eating red meat about 5 years ago, and then I went down to just having chicken, and then I went to being pescatarian for 2 years, just fish, and then I went from that to being vegan in January. And for me, I noticed a difference in inflammation and all this kind of stuff. I'm not saying anyone should do this, but for me, it felt right. I checked out my metabolic rate, my metabolic type recently, which suggests that maybe I should be having more protein in my diet, but I don't want to get it from meat. I want to look at other ways of doing it. And that's just a personal thing for me. So I like to start from the inside out and, again, not compare myself to anyone, take my time with it. I'm still doing my martial arts. It helps the acting, helps with fight scenes, helps with picking up fight choreography, quickly and falling safely and working with people. So I do it for that, but also because health-wise, it gives me an outlet for my stress. I go there, I work out, and I'm full of endorphins. Sometimes I don't want to go. Sometimes I'm so comfortable on the sofa with my snacks. I'm like, oh my gosh, training, I have to leave for training in 20 minutes. I don't want to leave, but I somehow peel myself off the sofa and go and do it. And I'm always glad that I did, because the people you meet and the exchange and everything else just feels so good. So I think just finding something that resonates with you, something that fits right for you in your situation, being consistent with it, not beating yourself up those days that you don't go or you let it go, but being realistic enough to say, I can't go once a month. I can't go once a week. I need to go a couple of times a week. I can't make it, do something at home, go for a walk, go to the park, take the stairs, walk up and down the stairs in your housing estate or in your house or in the garden, get a skipping rope, get kettlebells, get a couple of cans of beans. There's so many things you can do. Get a chair, put it outside, sit up and down on it. There's so many things we can do if you want to increase your activity rate. Swimming if you're worried about your joints, get a cycle, get a bike or something, and do it. Be around people also that feel good about exercising and living a certain way. A lot of my friends around me don't really smoke or drink. I don't smoke. If I rarely have a drink, that kind of thing, because I just want to do what I can to be healthy, but without beating myself up.
And I think that the not beating yourself up is actually the really big thing about it, because so much of what we do is we're very hard on ourselves and very much about, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and almost talking down to ourselves of, you're rubbish, you're all of those things. And I know there's a lot of evidence now, as well as just anecdotal evidence around, you need to be positive, you need to be buoying yourself up, and you need to be taking those good things out and accepting that some days you can't do it for whatever reason. And I know that I've found that some days I go for a walk and I can only go so far. And I've stopped worrying about the fact that on those days I didn't go as far as I maybe went the day before. And it is just actually, for whatever reason, that's what my body's up to today, and I'm just accepting it. And tomorrow, we'll see where it goes. But it's quite hard to make that change from the, no, I need to be doing this, and continuing the pressure when your body's not necessarily up for it.
Yes.
Are you able to continue and balance that with the other things that are happening in your life? Or do you find that people try and push your boundaries in terms of where they think they should be, whether that's drinking, whether it's smoking, whether it's, whatever it is?
Of course, people are always pushing boundaries. I'm always pushing people's boundaries. We all do. Because ultimately, we mainly think about what we want first, and we're supposed to. But it doesn't mean we should be inconsiderate to other people. This is just my opinion. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be, we should be inconsiderate and not think about other people and their needs and so on. And I kind of just like to recognize where the line is a lot sooner. When I was younger, I used to push much harder. But now I even with my calendar, in my diary, I have a certain amount of free time that I give to people. Not because I'm being rude or selfish, but because I know if I don't do that, I'm going to deplete myself. And I've fallen out with people over it. I have friends from way back who ask me for favors, who have done favors for me. So feel, and quite rightly, they could come to me and ask me for stuff. And I've had to say, I need you to talk to my agent. I need you to give me this and that and blah, blah. And they think, oh, really? Oh, it's like that now, is it? And you have to explain it's not because I'm trying to be arrogant or a twat about it. It's because if I don't, it means that I might potentially double book, which might mess you up. And if you've got money and time invested in something, you don't want that interfered with, and whoever else I'm working with. So I need to be. And so all my free time, I limit, put it in a calendar. Someone wants to do a talk or a dinner or whatever, check my calendar. And if it's a paid thing, there are a number of allocated days also, and the rest of it is my time. So I can make sure I squeeze in my martial arts, I squeeze in my me time, my weekends away and all that kind of stuff. I actually put myself and my wellness as a priority more now. Before I would sacrifice, it was do or die. It was like, no, we got to do this. And I would get so stressed about it. But I enjoyed that adrenaline. I enjoyed that pressure also. But I recognize that it's not good for you to do it all the time. Every now and again, of course, burn through to get that deadline and make sure you meet those opportunities. We have to show up, but not if it means we're going to, deplete ourselves. So I'm very careful about that.
That's really important to be able to do. And it's great that you found a way to incorporate it into your life, even with the other pressures out there for people to put those demands on you. So.
Yeah, because we're in the culture now of people send text messages and emails for crap, for absolute nonsense. I do it sometimes. I'm not even going to pretend that if you had to pay to do it, you would never do it. If you had to go and put a stamp on it, there's no way you're going to do it. So as soon as you start charging people for your time, you get to filter out those people that are serious or just really looking for someone to vent with or just burn a bit of time with. And I don't always have time for that.
Yeah, and it's measuring, because sometimes there are people who are in your life that it's important to you as well as to them that you're there supporting one another. But that is also a personal choice of who's important to you. It's not a right that somebody else has to make those demands on you.
Yeah, absolutely. The tough one is family, because we always feel more obliged to be there for them. And I talk a lot about how it's okay to not talk to your family. It's okay to cut them out of your life, even if it's your mum or your dad or your grandparent who raised you. If you recognize that there's this real negative or narcissistic kind of energy going on, it's okay, let go of them. It's not healthy for you.
It's not at all. And I think recognizing as well that every family is different and the dynamics in the family are different. So as you say, what's right for you is going to be different. Somebody else might be really close to their family. You might be going, actually, no, I don't want to see that person, or they're no longer part of my regular, bit of life. But it's hard, I think, sometimes to make those decisions, especially if there's other family pressure to be maintaining that connection.
Absolutely. Of course it's hard. And, we have an emotional attachment, and it's there for a reason. Again, it goes back to our hardwired survival thing. And if we could find a way to recognize it and slowly step away, step by step, of course it's hard.
I do always find it actually quite amazing how we've progressed so far in so many ways. And yet there's still this reptilian part of our brain that hasn't progressed at all and still controls so much of what we do. I think it's quite a contrast to where we are in terms of modern life.
Yeah. But I guess the thing that doesn't change is that we are mortal and that we can die at any time.
Yes. Somebody said, I'm sure there's somebody, it might be a well-known one, that, the one certain thing in life is that we'll all die.
Yes, indeed.
So, Spoon, it's been really interesting talking to you. And just before we wrap up, is there any, final things that you'd like to say to people who are listening?
Only if you do get an opportunity to check out my book, How to Think Beyond the Chart Position, please feel free to share and ask me any questions. I do respond on Twitter or even Instagram. Throw something up and I'll happily do what I can to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Spoon. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome. Speak soon.
I've been in conversation with Elroy Spoonface Powell. You can contact him on Instagram and Twitter using Spoonface1. All of his details will be available in the show notes. Next week, I'm in conversation with Moira Martin from Kelly's Storage. Moira runs a charity division within Kelly's Storage, which is a bit different from what I've seen and heard previously. And I really wanted to talk to her more about that, how it works and how it helps people, raising substantial sums of money for the charities that they support. There's a whole new vitality around the podcast world at the moment. If you want to be part of it and are thinking about whether or not you should have your own podcast, or you've got clear ideas about what your own podcast would be about, get in touch with me and we can talk about my podcast launcher as well as the other services that I can offer to help you to make that podcast happen. Go to launch.bridginggaps.uk to either arrange for a quick chat or to request further information. Coming up now, Mandy Dineley. Hello, so back again with yet another person from the Lead Gen Summit, and this time it's Mandy Dineley. And Mandy is the owner and founder of My Beautiful Pen, which just makes me want to go out and buy pens, I have to say. Hi Mandy, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks Debra. How are you?
I am good, thank you very much.
Yes.
Mandy, I just wanted to, you've started My Beautiful Pen, a couple months ago, a few months now.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously in early stages, but I was just wondering if you could share some of the key challenges that you found, in that startup process.
Yes, I mean, finding the name was fairly easy, so that was the easiest thing I would say. But then what I have found the most difficult, I would say, with a new business is the funding of it that's a real struggle, because when you're not earning money because you're setting up a new business, and you don't have funds elsewhere that you can draw on, or you can't keep taking lots of money from another area to put into it. I think that is the main struggle, the funding. So that can slow the whole process down, I would say. If setting it up, marketing, all those sort of things, buying, some of the products that I want to add on to My Beautiful Pen, I can't get at the moment, so I have to be patient.
So it's kind of exercising some patience and then looking at, okay, well, here's the funding I have, here's how it's going to have to basically play out as I try and move it forward.
Yes, and it's very frustrating because obviously I'm pretty impatient. I want it to go and I want to run with it, but that's one of the struggles. And also I would say technology, if you're not, I'm okay with technology, but I would say that, it can be very frustrating when you're having to do everything yourself. And again, it's hard to get it all to work.
And it's so many learning curves to go up. And it is that question of at what point do I say, well, the money that I do have, I'm going to spend on somebody else doing it versus actually know that money is better spent elsewhere. Therefore, I'm going to have to persevere with this learning curve. It's
Yes.
really difficult, isn't it?
It's good, yeah, it is. I think it's good for me because it really stretches me, and it also makes me a little bit more organised, I would say. And it's also what I have found interesting setting up the business is how it's evolved and how it's actually changing already.
Wow.
So with the initial idea, which is still there, it's changing and it's developing all the time, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I look forward to hearing more about it because we'll need to do a
Yes.
full interview, I think, at some point.
Yes, that
Yeah,
would be lovely, Debra.
wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Bridging Gaps, the business podcast, was produced by Debra Levitt of Bridge Road Consultants Limited, with original music provided by Pete Dineley.
You've been listening to Debra Levitt on Bridging Gaps, the business podcast.